Okay, hurricane season begins on June the 1st. That is this coming Monday. It's not out of the question. You can have an early season system. And one of the models is projecting an early storm to form in the Gulf next week. But there's a big reason why we need to take that forecast with a grain of salt. And it's something you may see on social media over the next several days. Storm forming in the Gulf. Well, hold on. Let's take a look at the big picture and let's talk about this. Okay, if we're going to get an early season system in the Caribbean or the Gulf, it quite often forms on something called the tropical gyre, which is a very broad, weak area of circulation in the Western Caribbean. It forms early in the season like now. And sometimes this tropical gyre can be a focusing mechanism to develop low pressure and potentially an early season tropical system. Sometimes. It also jibes with what we climatologically see. If we're going to see development in June in the Atlantic Basin, it develops typically here in the Northwest Caribbean, in the Gulf, specifically the East Gulf, and then up the East Coast. So when we look at the modeling and we look at the GFS, this is the American model, this is the model in question, it is closing off a low of some significance, maybe a tropical system, tropical storm trying to be forecast by the GFS, the American model, as we go into the first week of June. However, I want you to be aware that the physics of the GFS are such that they quite often, this model quite often will see an early season storm that forms in the Gulf that never actually forms. The GFS is notorious for being way too aggressive, especially early in the season with these gyre-driven suspect model, forecast model storms. So that's what you see forecast here. And you may see on social media, storm brewing in the Gulf next week. But take it with a big grain of salt because, as I mentioned, the GFS, the physics of this model, we are well aware in the meteorological community that it tends to overdo it. So when we go to look at other models, which we do, and looking at all the other models, they are not nearly as aggressive with forming a system in the Gulf going into next week. In fact, it does have a lot of moisture in the Gulf. That could lead to an increasing rain chance for Texas next week. But the European, the other big global model that we lean on, has nothing like what you see on the GFS, which we know can be a little over-aggressive this time of the year. So when you see something on social media about a storm brewing in the Gulf, make sure you come check with us before you make any decisions or get overly concerned about what may or may not form in the Gulf. That being said, we take hurricane season one day at a time. Anything can happen on any given day in the tropics in hurricane season.